Hi there, I'm here with Toby Sterrett of Simple. He's the head user experience designer over at Simple. Hey Toby,
Okay.
how's it going?
Doing pretty well.
Great. Well, I'm so excited to chat with you today. I know it's been actually a few years, but Simple was actually one of our speakers at Delight a few years ago, and we're really excited to have you guys back because I think that in thinking about brands that people really love, Simple is definitely one of them that just stands out for disrupting a space and being a real innovator in experience design. So I'd love to hear from you how you kind of found yourself at Simple doing what you're doing now.
Yeah. So basically, I just been doing design work for gosh since like the mid '90s. I wanted to make websites for my band and things like that. Went to art school for a couple of years, dropped out, and just started working. Started out doing a lot of just like print design, logos, brochures, that type of thing. Till my boss at the time came and put a copy of Front Page '98 on my desk and said we're going to start making websites for clients. So a lot of my career was mostly doing freelance work. I stopped working for a couple small agencies and did freelancing for probably about 7 years. So I was mostly doing, beginning to end website design for clients and pretty small clients, but from design work to building it out, doing back end, like dynamic website type stuff. So after doing that for 7 or 8 years, I decided to take a job at a startup up in San Francisco called PowerSet, and it was we were trying to do natural language search. So moved up there, somehow convinced my 8-month pregnant wife that it was a good idea to move to San Francisco from Southern California, and it turned out to be pretty awesome. I mean, we were working with some really great folks, and it was a pretty cool problem trying to compete with Google and all that type of stuff. We ended up getting purchased by Microsoft after a couple of years there. They wanted us to work on Bing. Like Bing was their new venture at that point. So did that. Stayed for a couple more years, but didn't really enjoy that environment. It was going from a company of about 60 people to 90,000, and that was kind of crazy. And it didn't give us much chance to actually like ship anything because they left us in San Francisco. We went up to Seattle a couple times, but it was just kind of like this satellite thing that basically we were just kind of like doing our time for a contract. So around the time that we were kind of finishing up at Microsoft, myself and a couple other folks at PowerSet, we were looking for new things to do. And and Alex from Twitter was one of our friends, and he had just quit Twitter to go start a company called Bank Simple. And a lot of people were kind of excited about it. It was like everybody hates their bank. This guy's going to try to do something user-friendly and cool. I had two friends that were planning on going. Honestly, I almost didn't do it just because I've always used a credit union. And that's kind of like supposed to be the solution to banking, right? It's just like, well, go find your local credit union. So I came pretty close to not even taking the job, but the reason I did was because I wanted to go someplace to work on something from the ground up, and there weren't too many other opportunities at the time to like build something from scratch. It was a lot of other established startups and things like that where I just kind of like go and be slotted into an existing team or something. So yeah, that was kind of where I decided, like, even though I didn't know I wanted to work on banking, wasn't sure it was going to be that like cool of a problem. It seems kind of boring, kind of buttoned up. I decided to do it, and yeah, it turned out to be the most fulfilling job I've worked on. It's been an awesome project, and I've been here 4 years next week, and it still feels like we're just getting started. There's tons more to do.
So how large is your team now?
The all of Simple right now is right around 150 people, and I'm kind of leading up the front end web team. I think we're up to about 6 people now. So relatively small engineering teams, but the company's grown a ton over the last few years.
Absolutely. Yeah, to your point, I mean, being one of the first employees at Simple even, what kind of flexibility and opportunities that did that really open up for you?
Yeah. So, like I said, there was those two other folks that I joined with from PowerSet, and one guy was working on back end, and the other guy was working on front end and design work. We were originally hired just to kind of be like HTML developers, like HTML, JavaScript, that type of thing. Um, but luckily, kind of early on, we convinced the rest of the team, like, hey, give us a chance to see if we can do the design work, and um, you know, like the first project we actually did was building a new marketing site for Bank Simple, and it was just myself and one other guy, and Bill, the guy that you interviewed a few years back, who was doing creative direction. Um, so we kind of just started working on a new marketing site, thinking about branding and just kind of like the overall messaging, and a big part of it was just figuring out what we wanted the final product to even be, because at that point there was literally nothing. It was just an idea and some whiteboard lists of features that people had thought of in the basement in Brooklyn, basically. Um, so that gave us a good opportunity to just kind of like feel each other out as a team, work on like kind of overall aesthetics and approaches to design work. Lots of work on copy and the voice of the company, things like that. Um, and yeah, it turned out pretty well. We kind of did like a single page scrolling thing. This was, gosh, almost 4 years ago. And it kind of got us a good amount of attention, and really, I think, set the stage for what people could expect for what the product was going to be. Um, and just kind of let the rest of the company know, like, hey, we don't have to go outside and hire like a design firm to hand us comps that we were going to build. Like we can do the whole thing in house, and use basically our collective experience as bank users and designers to help build the product that we really kind of envisioned in-house, without having to like rely on other folks to just kind of hand something off and then be gone.
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, banking, as you mentioned, is traditionally one of those industries that people just really dislike their experience. It's an undelightful experience usually, and I'm sure that opened up a ton of opportunities and ideas. But what challenges did you guys have with having such a small group?
Um, I think some of the biggest challenges initially with working on the product itself was the like the banking back end aspect of it. Just it took a long time to get going. So for the first, gosh, probably like 6 months to 9 months was just myself and Ian, the other front end person, just kind of like building out interfaces, and we did our own like JavaScript framework and just kind of like worked on the shell of the interface and the way the app was going to work, but we didn't have any backend to communicate with at that point. So we just had to like mock things up. Like mocked up a bunch of JSON and said like, well, we think this is what it's going to be like to receive transactions. So here's a bunch of fake transactions that we have, just kind of like as a static file, and use that as the data for the interface we were working on to display. And we had to do a lot of the app that way, where we were just kind of like faking it and going a little bit blind as we were building out the UI, just hoping that, okay, when the backend is ready, it can be kind of like that. And for the most part, it worked out pretty well. It gave the backend folks a good idea of what we were expecting, and they could kind of shape their APIs and things like that to work with what we already had. But it's banking, and there's been a lot of harsh realities as we build this thing out. The technology that the rest of the industry uses, that we have to also use in order for it to be a working bank account, is very it's pretty rough. And thank God we have these back end folks that are willing to to work with all that ancient crufty stuff. But they deliver us a really nice RESTful JSON API, and we have it pretty easy on the front end team as far as like just being able to concentrate on making a good experience rather than worrying about all of the banking stuff in the background. Um, But yeah, I think having a small team was maybe even a benefit because we just got to kind of put our heads down and bounce ideas off each other and just kind of go for 6 months and just think about a lot of the different problems and um, mock stuff up and build it out really quickly and not we didn't have to worry about it being an actual working product at that point. We got to just think about the features and the experience.
Hmm. Absolutely. So, thinking about, other industries outside of the banking industry, where do you find inspiration for the ideas that you guys are starting to develop now that you've been around for a few years?
Yeah, there's not too much to look at in the banking industry, like you mentioned. I still have my old credit union account, but like it's been the same for a decade. So for the most part, we approached building this app just like any other app we would have built for a client or any other modern startup. So I think we took a lot more inspiration from things like Gmail and Rdio and things like that than any kind of banking product out there. There's a lot of similarities between just like the way something like Gmail works with we have like lots of keyboard commands and things like that, things you would never really find on a banking app. Um, so we kind of wanted to treat it more like an inbox for your transactions than like when you go to your normal bank account, it's just like here's your two accounts and you click on that and then you kind of get like 10 transactions. We want it to just be like everything that you've ever done, and you'd be able to search it and uh, edit things, make memos, hashtags, all that type of stuff. Um, so yeah, I'd say it's a lot more influenced by just modern web apps like Twitter, Gmail, RDO, things like that.
Hmm. And speaking of actually, they've come obviously a very, very long way with the way that you're allowed to set up your inbox even and configure it so it's a little more personal to you. And one of the themes that has been emerging over the course of leading up to Delay is really personalization and how brands are personalizing the content and the experiences that people have. How is people looking at personalized content and experiences?
Yeah, at this point, a lot of the personalization stuff is things that the user can add and kind of augment their transactions and spending history. Like we do things with attached photos. You can, if you're someplace at a nice dinner, you can take the ubiquitous photo of your plate, but attach it to the transaction as it comes through, and you kind of have this history of places you've been. You can write a memo. A lot of folks here have mentioned that their simple account is like the best journaling they've done in their life, basically, because um, as you're doing day-to-day things, you're spending money, and you have this like history of transactions of different places you've been, and you can write memos, and we have people that are writing paragraphs as their memos with like mentioning who they're with and hashtagging with different places and things like a lot of people are doing scores of restaurants and stuff like that, so they can kind of go back in their history and search for the restaurants they actually liked based on their hashtag score and stuff like that. Um, so we give people a lot of opportunities, especially compared to like a normal bank account. Normal bank accounts are read only, and that's it. And a lot of times it'll just be like kind of this garbled description of where you went. You have to decipher where it was. We let you do whatever you want with that information and tailor it to your needs and how you want it to appear. You can do different categories and um, lots of searches. We let people save searches so you can have running reports. Like I have one that's food this month. You just search for food this month, and it gives me a running total of how much I've spent just on anything that's like a restaurant or fast food or coffee category. Just that type of stuff, and it's real easy. And I can see like at any point like, oh geez, I'm spending too much this month on food. Um, and then we have things like goals, so you can one of the big things we wanted people to be able to do was, section off their money in however ways it would benefit them. We had folks here early on who were using other banks that would let you create a few actual accounts. Like I think one guy had 5 accounts at like ING or something like that, and he would kind of move his money manually between all those different accounts just for budgeting purposes and things like that. So, with goals, you can basically slice and dice your money into as many different buckets as you want. And that's really, helped a lot of people kind of personalize their spending and budgeting just by saying, okay, I want to have this much money for food, this much money for, my rent and all that type of stuff. And then, they get a much better snapshot of how they want their finances to be allocated. So, all that type of stuff, we really try to let people, just do what they need to do with their money. And in the future, we might try to start doing more kind of automated stuff along those lines based on, things they've done in the past. As far as kind of like automated personalization goes.
Sure. So even beyond experiences, it's really a much more engaging and frictionless experience for your users. So that's great. So looking at Relay and your session, what can people outside of the banking industry expect to take away from your talk?
I think one of the main takeaways from my talk is going to be kind of the experience of entering into a project that you're kind of apprehensive about. You're not sure if it's going to be like that fun of a project or something along those lines, because it seems very restrictive going into something like finance or whatever. And just kind of seeing like if you give it a chance and try to approach it from a different way, where it's like you just don't go in and kind of ride the rails of what you're supposed to do in a finance app or in a banking app or something like that, because I spoke at a credit union conference recently, and it blew their minds that we even attempted to build our own front end and UI for a banking app. They expect people to come in and buy an off-the-shelf solution, put their logo on it, and then pay somebody to integrate it and ship it off to their customers. And we completely took the opposite approach to that, kind of out of ignorance. We didn't know that's what you're supposed to do, right? So, I just kind of want to show that even for something like this where, I didn't really expect it to be that great of a project, there's lots of opportunity for, trying to create a good experience for users that, are frankly used to a pretty crappy experience and just kind of accepting like that's just the way it is. It's banking, right? It's like, no, we can try to do things differently, and we might succeed, we might fail, but we're trying to do something that is going to provide a much better experience in an industry that it feels like you're not supposed to. And just showing some of the processes we went through, a lot of just like little details and things like that we tried to sneak in, just to try to make everything feel a bit more human rather than just we're holding your money and you should thank us for that.
That's great. I think that's really what Delight is all about, is looking at how to go above what's just expected of your brand, but really what's going to build value and delight for the customer. So I'm really looking forward to your session.
I'm really looking forward to the conference in general. I mean, I love that idea of just the small things you can kind of sneak in without even expecting people to find it, but when they do, it's going to kind of make them stoked. One of the big things that we've kind of collected over the years is a lot of tweets from customers where they do notice these small things, and they get excited about it and tweet about it, or take a screenshot of their mobile app and put it on Instagram with a filter because they got excited about some small little detail. And I'm really excited to see what other folks in different industries are doing along those lines.
For sure. Is there anything in particular you're looking forward to?
I'm not too sure. I mean, like any opportunity that people take for this type of stuff is always interesting to see, and I kind of just want to be surprised by what some other folks are doing.
Absolutely. Well, we're really looking forward to having you at Delight. I know you're already in Portland, so it'll be good to see you and catch up, and I look forward to seeing you in a few months, or actually almost 1 month now.
No, it's not that far away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Great to chat with you, and we'll talk soon.
Cool. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks.